Let me move on to a question that I asked in the forum we had back in the spring. There is a difficult tension between volunteer experts and volunteer experts who stand to profit from giving their advice to the county. Professional services firms, engineering firms, planning firms, whatever, who can give their time to appointed boards without compensation, but when the results of those boards produce a result that favors them financially. How do you intend to manage that and maintain the confidence of the voters of Waller County? I think it's yours.
Okay. I think that's always going to be a concern. It's always going to be a concern with any constituents, especially in county government. For sure, you know that engineers are looking to Waller County. You can see that we're talking mobility projects and people want to profit from that. What you do as a good county judge is you had good policies in place. You work with the commissioner's court and the public to put the best policies in place that you can. And you have to work with people. And I am absolutely okay with a task force being put together that says, how do we do this? How do we make sure that the things that are going to happen, the infrastructure projects that are coming, that we won't have those sweetheart deals that we're scratching our head about with regard to saying, how did that vote come about? We want honesty and openness. It's not easy. Having been there and having sat on that dais for 4 years, having sat at the City Council of Prairie View, it is not easy. We have to have good, strong public officials. We have to make sure that we are afraid of the law in terms of respecting it. You got to fear the law. You've got to fear the law. And I think that's absolutely critical. And you have got to make the district attorney's office work for the people, because that's their job. They represent us. They have got to advise us so that we do everything in the best way possible. And I keep talking about the Texas Association of Counties because we use your tax dollars to pay for membership. And it is an agency that is there to provide us information when we don't have all the answers. I'm not going to pretend that 4 years of being a commissioner gave me all the answers. But I do know that I saw plenty of things that I didn't like. Plenty of things I didn't like. And I was a lone voice sometimes, because I totally support the fact that we need to scrutinize who's getting contracts, how are they doing it, and make sure that we do it as fairly as possible. And I have a very different background. My whole background has really been about making sure that people have fairness and justice, just like the lawsuit with regard to the landfill. You know, I have litigated issues relating to bullying, sexual harassment and violence in schools. When you fight for justice, you need people speaking up behind you. And I want all of you to speak up with me to say, let's look at this program, let's look at this policy, let's look at this contract, and make sure that we're not doing something that we regret later. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. Trey?
That is an awesome question. It's an awesome question because we have projects all the time. We have consultants and engineers that come in, they offer their expertise. Nobody else is typically doing that. We can make use of that expertise, but then when something happens, they're also there wanting that contract. It comes down to integrity and it comes down to ethics. I'm the elected official. I'm the gatekeeper. I am the one entrusted by all of you to keep back the feral hogs, to protect the public, to make sure things are done in an honest and straightforward manner, that all of you know what's going on when it's going on. There's got to be something inside of you that says, this doesn't feel right. Somebody says, hey, we've got this great project. Come meet us at a hotel, and we're going to stagger the meetings. Something has got to tell you that ain't right. And then to do it and then not tell anybody, especially something, that's why we're in litigation. You have got to be the one that says, no, I appreciate you. I appreciate what you've done for this county. But if you want this contract, you're going to bid for it like everybody else. And it's going to be in open court. And it's going to be in front of everyone. And it's going to have to be the best deal for Waller County. Thank you.
Thank you both. It's a short answer question coming up, so Debbie, cut them off after 15 seconds. Thank you. It'll take me longer than that to read the question, so but just hang on. Have you ever taken contributions from, or do you intend to take contributions from professional services firms that do business with the county?
I'm thinking back on my campaign finance, am I first?
Yes.
Okay. Professional service firms that do business with the county. I know Brandon Purdue, which is the law firm that does the tax collections. I think they've donated to my campaign $500. I know that Jim Russ, who is with EHRA Engineering, has given $500. And to be honest, I didn't get hardly anything else from anybody that is involved or does business with the county to my awareness. Most of my campaign money, probably I'm talking over $90,000, has come from Waller County, other than friends and family. If you see Louisiana addresses, that's my family, so don't worry about that.
I won't give you any extra points for that.
Oh no. I probably just got dinged for admitting that my family comes from Louisiana. But from folks like you, all the hands that were up, these are the folks, the Waller County citizens. I'm very proud of that fact. It is something you got to be very careful of. I mean, if you've got somebody who's raised $20,000 and $19,000 of that has come from professional service organizations, then you got to imagine that there could be some issues. And I'm not saying that Ms. Cedillo has done that, but I know there's been officials in the past. So obviously, but number one, it needs to be open and transparent. That's why you do a campaign finance report, so that you as the public know who's given the money, and then if I make a decision that you think, you know, I'm showing favoritism or whatever it is, you give me my walking papers. That's how the system should work. So I think I've gotten a couple, of donations. But and for those of you that have supported my campaign, I'm proud. Thank you very much. I do appreciate it.
Thank you. Sylvia?
Given the fact that I've been in elective office and I'm now in this campaign, I'm going to answer yes, because I believe that's truthful. That's truthful. And I work to be as transparent as possible in all of my reports. And so I think that's very good for the public to know. But if you looked at Mr. Duhan's reports, you would see Jim Russ, and you would have his address, but you wouldn't know that he's with EHRC, an engineering firm. If you saw the name Elton Mathis, you would know that one of his contributors is the elected district attorney of Waller County. If you looked at Purdue Brandon on the list, you wouldn't know that they're attorneys and they do delinquent tax collection. That's true transparency, not just doing what the law says, but going above and beyond and filling all the blanks in. That was my point earlier. That's true transparency for the people. That's true transparency. So we need to have that information. I think that's very important, that they do disclose that information. But the fact is that campaigns are expensive. Those signs don't get built overnight by, just by themselves. They don't appear that way. And so that's part of politics in this country. But the main thing that we have to have is a diligent public who does stay honest, who says, is our candidate for sale? Was our judge for sale? And let's be real. I'm going to tell you what it's like. People come to do business in Waller County. Sometimes you meet at a restaurant, sometimes you meet at an office, sometimes you meet in a conference room somewhere. But the intent is never to do some secret deal. I can tell you that was never my intent. Absolutely not. And Vince Yoakum, who gets about $80,000 of your county tax budget, can tell you that that's what happens when business wants to come to Waller County. That's what wants to happen. That's what happens. And also with regard to, the transparency, the secrecy, sometimes you just don't know. You just don't know if those people are wanting to get your business. And you have to walk the best line that you can and say, let me talk to other people, because that's what you do. You use common sense and reasonableness when you sit in the county judge's seat, because you always want to represent the people as best as you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. And I agree with you both. This is an issue that really cuts to the ethics of the candidates. It's up to them to stop the quid pro quo deal. So I was glad to hear both of you answer openly and honestly. And just for everybody in this room, since the county decided to take down the posting of contribution and expense statements for reasons unknown, nobody can remember, Debbie is posting it on the Contract Swap website as soon as Larkin, wherever Larkin is, runs down and picks them up when they're done, scans them in, and we'll put them up there. So if you can get to our website, you can see the C&Es. That's contribution and expense statements. And we'll have to have a separate conversation about why the county won't post them. Got me. Let's move on. We got other topics we want to talk about here. Protection of natural resources. Most of us in this part of the county have seen an absolute attack, an onslaught on the environment in which we live, the natural resources where we are. As county judge, why do you think you will be more effective at protecting our natural resources than your opponent? Sylvia, I think you're up. Yes, ma'am.
Well, one of the things I realize is that I'm not an engineer. I'm not an expert on water or anything like that. I'm going to tell you. But what I do know is that I live here in Waller County. I love Waller County. I want to make sure that we have great air quality. I live in a community of Prairie View, which has a concrete plant that blows dust up in the air. And I work with people to try to stop all of those emissions that are going. I spent a long time in my career, even before I was a lawyer, working to make sure that we had a good, healthy environment. I don't want babies being born with defects. I want our water to come out and smell good, taste good, and have good quality, for sure. And so that's why one of the things that I believe we must do is have great working relationships with state agencies. The Texas Water Development Board is critical. The Parks and Wildlife Department is critical. All of those agencies are important. All of those agencies, and we have to get to know, as a county judge, we have got to get to know the people who serve on the committees at the legislature, who work on areas of natural resources. I must say that, because one of the things that I found in county government in Waller County is that we have a huge weakness with regard to the manner in which we conduct governmental affairs. And a lot of times, when you have good people who are out there who are talking, the information flows back so that we know way in advance what's happening. The frustration I had as a county commissioner was a lot of times information was brought to the table for a decision to be made, and a lot of consideration with regard to the environment had not been taken into account. We have got to do that. We've got to do that. There are wonderful facilities that have come into the community. Goya, I celebrate them. Weatherford, I celebrate them. But I gotta tell you, I'm not sure that we exactly measured everything with regard to how those fabulous companies are going to affect us with regard to any environmental issues. So we can't just celebrate the work of our economic development partnership. We can't just celebrate corporations. We also have to be informed. And by the way, Goya is a very good community partner, I gotta say. But we have to know more. We have to know more. We have to have people who are in our various departments like Road and Bridge, dealing with permits. We have to have better informed people. And if it means spending money to train them, then we have to do it. If it means making sure that our community is educated, then we have to do it. That's a good use of your tax dollars. When we help educate the public, do it in English and Spanish so that people can identify issues in their community, in their backyard, in their precinct, so that they can come and communicate to us. So that when we hear about issues, whether it's highways or power lines or development projects, we will have people who are informed enough to ask questions. You will hear often that one of the frustrations from Commissioner's Court was that Sylvia asked too many questions. What is wrong with asking questions? Because I believe people need information. You deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Trey.
Well, I think the one thing that I can say is that natural resources have always been something that has always been very near and dear to my heart. From the first time I set foot in Waller County and built a home here and found out that it was in the middle of this Trans-Texas corridor, I spent 3 years fighting this thing tooth and nail with a lot of you in the trenches every day. 40 acres per mile. I mean, it was going to destroy some of the best farmland. You can't have a discussion about natural resources without talking about private property rights that have to be protected. Recycling. I came to Waller County and I was flabbergasted that we didn't have a recycling center. And that's when we found out that grant money had been on the table, but nobody wanted to do the paperwork. We got a recycling center. That recycling center that I'm very proud of needs to be expanded. It needs to have satellite stations. Why is recycling important? There's a landfill going in up here. You recycle and you recycle seriously, you reduce your footprint to almost nothing. I've done that before. I've collected plastics. I separate my numbers out. I know I'm type A, but it's amazing when you do that. The amount of trash left in your trash can is this small. If we all do that, then the need for landfills is substantially decreased. So I have shown, again, in the past that I'm committed to these things. I think we have to develop a comprehensive resource protection plan. I'd like to do that within a year of becoming judge. I want to conduct an inventory of our natural resources. I want to identify the stakeholders, who are the groups we need to work with in that regards. We need a long-range green space plan. We need to make sure we start doing things now. Have you ever seen a Waller County park? But I promise you with the growth, we're going to need them. I have spent time with Mary Ann. Where are you, Mary Ann? You still here or did she leave? There she is in the back. Director of the Katy Prairie Conservancy. I've toured their facilities. That is the kind of facility, the stakeholder we can partner with to make sure we have those green spaces for people to go out and see the birds, the migratory birds, and so on and so forth, and the grasses. It's incredible. I'm committed to protecting that type of area. And we also need to have some practical solutions too. You know, sludge disposal is still allowed in this county, and I think that's something that we have to definitely address. So I like to be very specific. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. One more question on the protection of natural resources. In this part of the county, many of the folks here in this room are from, the singular issue in front of us right now has been for a number of years the landfill issue. My question to you is, what is your position on that landfill? Has that ever changed? Will that ever change? What do you think about the arrangement that the county has currently entered into with Green Group Holdings? What do you intend to do about that host agreement? Give me some commentary about that, please.
I'm against the landfill. Let's just make sure everybody's clear on that. I'm against the landfill. It's in a bad location. It's on top of an aquifer. It was not done in an open and transparent manner. The host agreement and the landfill ordinance, again, I do not believe were done in an open and transparent manner. I have heard some talk about the host agreement like it is the greatest thing since white bread, but I'm here to tell you that any agreement, if it is not done in an open and transparent manner with public input, I'm just not going to be in favor of it, because beauty is in the eye of the beholder. What you think is a great host agreement, if you live near the landfill, is probably not that great of a host agreement. Question is, did you have an opportunity to comment on the host agreement or have input at a public hearing or at a commissioner's court meeting? You know, we had a host agreement, which is a huge comprehensive document that was passed with no public discussion at the meeting at which it was passed. How can that be? Where did those discussions take place? So I absolutely will do everything I can. It's in litigation right now. That's going to have to run its course. I think the city of Hempstead has an excellent case. I will just be honest with you. I think there's a good chance that our landfill ordinance may be invalidated. What's our plan B? I've been asking county officials for what their plan B is if that ordinance is invalidated. We have to work with everyone to start putting together that comprehensive waste management plan. We need to decide if this is something, where and when. I hope the litigation will go well so that, we don't have to deal with this issue in the next court, because it's just been a huge distraction. It's keeping us from doing the work we need to do, the planning. Not to mention it's a drain on our resources. The attorney's fees, everything that's being spent is time that we're not spending getting ready for Houston, which is coming right down the road. So I think that we have to definitely be very careful. We have to be very deliberate. We have to take it step by step. But I will do whatever I can to make sure that this landfill project does not happen within my power. Thank you.
Thank you. Sylvia?
The majority of people in this room know that as far back as 2011, I've stated I'm against the landfill. I do not want a landfill in Waller County. I'm against the landfill. At one point, I supported as a commissioner litigation, affirmative litigation, to try to address this issue. It didn't happen. We are now involved in 2 lawsuits with the landfill. It's easy to be an opportunist when it comes to a very hot button issue. The fact that I opposed the landfill, the fact that I spoke out at TCEQ meetings, that's on record with you. You all know that. The first communication that the TCEQ has on my opponent is March the 31st of 2014. How convenient after you win a Republican primary to say, and by the way, I'm against the landfill and I want a contested hearing. Where you been, Trey, is the first reaction that I had to that. I've stood here with you, I've been here with you, I've worked to educate myself about that. My child was involved in helping me put my research together. That's how passionate I am about protecting people. And it doesn't always go your way, and sometimes litigation happens. And it's going on now. It's very expensive, it's very time consuming, and it hurts the county. And it hurts my heart that we're involved in litigation that people have probably had arguments in their house about, that people haven't slept about. I don't like that. I don't like that. But I know that as a lawyer, that's a part of fighting for justice. People are doing what they believe is important. And I absolutely accept the fact that the Waller County government is a defendant in litigation over the landfill. I accept that. And one of the things that I know is that that host agreement is separate from the litigation. It's separate from the litigation. So we have to understand what would happen if we were to withdraw a host agreement. I will do everything that I can to work with the public to make sure we understand what is going on with the litigation and to make sure that we work so that we don't have a landfill here. But I'm also a realist. If that permit is issued, it's very likely it's going to happen. And I got to look to the future. Remember I said 80,000 people projected by 2040. I said that at the meeting. That number is way off. We're probably going to have more than 100,000 by the year 2040. And if you go and take a $50 million option in today's dollars off the table, what does that mean for Waller County in the future? I've got to do that balancing act. I may or may not make people happy, but I'm going to do it in the most educated, practical way. Absolutely. I will listen to people, I will work with people, and again, I'm against the landfill, and you need to know that, and you already know that because you stood with me at those TCEQ meetings as we spoke. Thank you.